Hello, everyone. As I'm like bending over in front of you, I should have planned that out a little bit better. How are you? Are you awake? Are you ready? Because I'm gonna need you to like be awake with me. Hence all of my tea with lots of sugar. I'm happy to be here. I kept debating whether I was gonna walk around or sit down. Whenever I speak, I normally walk around, but this chair is just so comfortable and it's here and I cannot deny it. So I'm just gonna sit here. And I'm gonna go ahead and just talk, and then towards the end, I'll bring my dad up to do the Q&A with me. We did our first kind of session together a few months ago in Boston. We spoke to a librarians conference. And when my dad came up after we got off the stage, I felt like we were at a comedy show and not really like, I don't know, you'll see what I mean very soon. But anyway, I'll just get to it. My name is Lizzie. I was born and raised here in Austin, Texas. So if you're not from here, welcome to this gorgeous city. I'm very grateful to be here, especially because of the fact that like I said, I was born and raised here, and this is actually my second South by Southwest ever. Last year was my first time, and it was when we premiered my documentary. So it's a great way to kick off my South by Southwest experience. But I really wanted to touch on today a lot of the things that have happened to me over the past year, just because the things that I've gone through growing up really have been the foundation for me to be able to do what I do today. I was born with a rare syndrome that doesn't allow me to gain weight. And I'm getting confused with the math because I turned 27 on Sunday, but I was diagnosed when I was 25. So do I count the 27? Or you get what I'm saying. Up until recently, I was undiagnosed my entire life. And so I was basically a big question mark. I was born 2 pounds, 10 ounces. And when I was born, the doctors told my parents, basically, we really don't know what's wrong with her exactly, but she's never going to be able to walk or talk or crawl, and you're going to have to take care of her the rest of her life. And I was my parents' firstborn child. And instead of being in a situation where you are a first-time parent and you're getting all of these negative things being told to you right off the bat, I think the assumption is you would be afraid and you would be scared or angry or frustrated and be at a loss of what to do next. Luckily, I was sent to the right people. The doctors actually showed my mom a Polaroid of me before they actually let her see me because they thought she would be afraid. And she pushed it away and said, "Bring her in." And from that moment, my parents took me home and they raised me to the best of their ability, and they loved me and supported me, and they never, ever said, "Why us?" Again, just going back to a little bit of the medical stuff, I haven't really been able to put on weight my entire life, and that's become my norm. I've definitely learned the perks of it, and even you just have to think business-wise sometimes, and if there's ever a point where I just need to be a spokesperson for a gym and just say, "I worked out here, look how well it worked," do whatever I can to help anybody. But I think I've been able to have this sense of self because of my parents and because of who I was sent to. My parents raised me in a community that was so accepting and just treated me as Lizzie. I remember growing up, there were times where we would be around other people and they never treated me differently. They never made me feel like I was anything less than, and mind you, I was very, very young. When it came time for me to start kindergarten, I was very excited. My mom had stayed home with me to help raise me when I was born, and she started babysitting one of my cousins who was my age and my now first ever best friend who's like my sister now. And to be able to grow up around them, I had just had the understanding that I was just like them because I was doing everything like them. So when it was time for me to start kindergarten, a 5-year-old is super excited. I remember just having all of my Pocahontas gear picked out, and I was so ready, and my mom did my hair in the morning, and I had no clue how nervous they were for me. My dad was a first grade teacher at the time at my school, and I'll let him go more into that story, but I'll just say he had to go get my mom to actually leave the building because she just wanted to stay in the window watching me. But I remember being excited and going in and walking up to a little girl on the first day who was reading a book sitting on the floor. And I asked her, what's her name? And said hi. And she looked up at me with this crazy expression on her face, like, who are you? What are you? And that was the moment that my eyes were opened to the fact that, what's going on? I'm being nice to her. And I thought maybe that's just her. And unfortunately, it didn't get any better. There were other kids who had the exact same reaction. And I noticed that it just kept happening over and over and over. It happened when we were walking down the halls. It would happen when I was sitting in the cafeteria. It happened when we were going to PE or art or music, and I would see other kids that were just pointing at me and whispering at me and saying things behind me or giggling at me. The worst was probably the playground, because that's when you're running around with your classmates and your teachers are standing somewhere else supervising, but in that moment you're running around with these other kids, and I think that was always a challenge for me. And again, I was 5 years old, so I always look at this as like a big slap of reality for a 5-year-old, which is, of course, very, very confusing. And there were kids who I desperately just wanted to play with. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to go up to someone who was swinging and just sit next to them and say hi and enjoy whatever they were doing. And I wasn't able to do that, because when I would go up to other kids on the playground, they would just kind of scatter and go away. And it hurt, and it was confusing. And my teachers were incredible. I love them still to this day. They always knew how to handle any situation and never made me feel as though they were calling me out in front of other people if they saw them not treating me so nicely. And as I got older, starting to go into first and second grade, I started becoming more aware of my situation. And I never went home and told my parents what was going on. I never expressed it to anyone. I think it was because I was embarrassed and ashamed of what was going on. And I thought if I just not talk about it, maybe it'll go away. And that's when all of the times where I would just pray, where I would wish upon a star, where every birthday I would blow out the candle and wish to wake up and just look like everybody else. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to change my skin. I wanted to be able to change the body that I'm in. I wanted to be able to wear the cool clothes and have them fit just like everybody else. That's all I wanted. Now, I'm telling you all of this that was going on through my mind personally. But every day, every moment through all of that, the support system that I had kept me going. Whether it was my family, whether it was my parents or my brother and sister, whether it was extended family, our community at church, whether it was my dad's teacher friends at our school, there was always people there who wouldn't let me feel sorry for myself, even at that young of an age. They never let me. There were times where they could tell that I was upset that something happened, but they would change the subject, or they would just let me get it out of my system and start saying, well, at least you have this. And that's where humor came in. And I'm guessing you can tell that I've learned how to make light of any situation, and it's made things a lot easier for me. Humor is very important in my life, and especially with my family. My dad is the king at making people laugh, and I feel so bad admitting that because he's here. He has this thing where he'll say, we'll do the mad test, and I'll count to 3. And if you don't smile by 3, then you're not really mad. So no matter how mad you are, you smile, and that makes the whole situation even worse. But to be able to have little things like that as I was growing up definitely played a huge part in me growing in so many different aspects. I think it's hard for me to say this now, but I know it was the truth. When I was younger, I always felt like I was the victim. I felt like I was the victim of the bully. My dad and I started having a routine where, and if you've seen the documentary, it sounds like I'm repeating this, but it's the truth. This is what really happened. He would go with me to my class on the first day of school and basically introduce me to the other kids and explain why I looked different. And at the time, I hated that. I thought it was the worst idea because it was me putting myself out there in front of other people and saying, this is who I am. And it did help. It helped with the people that were in my class. It helped my teacher be able to understand things a little bit more. It made me feel less awkward when I had to always sit in the front row of the classroom to be able to see the board. Or I didn't mention this, but I'm blind in my right eye. And there were times where we would have to take tests, and I would have to get large print tests. And I don't know if they still have them now. I feel like with technology, they don't have this anymore. But it was a massive test book. And when I say massive, it took up 2 desks. So just imagine me at a young age trying to turn these giant pages in front of other people, and the font was probably the size like 150 or something in bold text. And I had to do those things, and it was hard for me, but not as hard because I had the understanding from the other kids in my class. And so it was just a lot of me getting into my own thoughts. And it was another way that I just kept thinking, I just want to be like everybody else. It was sort of like me, once again, playing the victim card in my own mind. Over the years, as I got older, I started getting more and more frustrated. I started becoming more aware of my situation. And it wasn't just being bullied in schools anymore. It started happening when I was going out in public. And when I talk about bullying, I never had the instances of where anyone pushed me or tripped me or did anything like that harmful. It was always just the words or the stares. And it got to a point once I was older that I wasn't able to go to a theme park. Going to the grocery store was getting harder and harder because I would walk with my mom and we'd turn around and there was people who were following us with their carts just to put their neck back and get that last look at me. And I went into this mode where I just wanted to hide behind whoever I was with. I stopped wanting to go out to these places that I knew I would get stared at. And that means being in middle school and wanting to go hang out at the mall with your friends, and that was hard. That was always a challenge for me, to be able to have the confidence to go out, because it was me putting myself out there and having all of these other people staring at me. And it wasn't just kids who were doing these things. It was teenagers, it was young adults, it was older people who were, it blows my mind remembering it, because there were times where there would be grown adults who would tap their younger person who was with them and point to me, and they would all just kind of look and giggle and whisper. And it always blew my mind that they would do that. And I would always want to just avoid the situation and not deal with it and just kind of be shy and hide once again behind whoever I was with. I think a lot of times we all feel like we just want to be in control of our situation, whether it's at home, whether it's at work. No matter what it is, we just want to be able to have the control of the situation, to be able to make it and have the outcome that we want or that we can accept. One that isn't something that we just want to push away. So I think we all can relate to something like that. I'm sure you can all think of right now something in your mind, a situation where you wish I could just take control of that. And I had that very, very same thought growing up, when I was in middle school, when I started high school. Once I started high school, I finally realized that I could start taking control of the situation. That came in many different forms. I went in my 9th grade year really excited. I had friends that I'd been to middle school with, friends from church that were going to the same school with me, and I felt pretty confident. I went in and I had the idea, Lizzie, it's a great idea if you just join everything you possibly can think of. I joined our school newspaper and I took photos, which I don't know why anyone trusted me with being blind in one eye and not that great of vision in the other, and who knows if any of my pictures even came out clear, but I still was able to do it. I wrote for our school newspaper with one of my best friends, and I was just the worst at that too. I would sometimes not want to go out and interview people, so I would just write quotes from my friends and say, listen, if you read the paper, this is what you said. Don't recommend doing that. And I did finally confess that to my journalism teacher, which she thought was pretty funny. But I did those things because I wanted to not only prove to myself that I could be just like everyone else and that I can start finally taking the reins of my own life and finally start accepting the body that I'm in and the person that I am. Cheerleading also became a bright idea of mine once again. I know, you're probably thinking, Lizzie, of course you did cheerleading, you're super athletic. I know, I thought that too. I was exempt from PE my entire life, so I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. I knew the uniforms were really cute, and that was probably the only thing that I cared about. I really didn't even consider the fact that we were actually going to have to cheerlead. It was a great wake-up call the first day when I was super, super sore. But I did that, and I tried out, and I made it, and I felt so proud. And I feel like if you think of, just for right now, if you think of confidence as an iPhone battery, okay? I was in the red for a long, long time. And I was finally getting close enough to where that red was turning green. And it was finally starting to look up. And that felt really, really good. It felt good to be able to go to football games and cheer, even though I had no clue what I was cheering about. I remember one game, my dad was in the stands, and he's like, you're screaming for the wrong, defense or something. I don't know. We were so off. And I was like, what? I can't hear you. But I did it, and I loved it. And I loved the way that it made me feel. It made me feel like the uniform that I was wearing was my superhero cape. I felt like when I walked around the halls or when I walked out in public, that I was finally getting what I wanted when I was younger, which was being able to go out and just feel like I was like everybody else. High school was great. High school is great. Every single one of us have had a different high school experience. And I know if someone says, would you ever do high school all over again? I feel like a lot of people would say no, and I would too. But it changed me in many different ways. It changed me. I remember just wanting to be able to hang out with my friends and enjoy things, and we did that. I had an incredible group of girlfriends who I'd been close with since 6th grade, and we would have this thing where they would always come over to my house, and we'd lay in bed with my mom, and they would all just pick at my mom, and everyone would just laugh. And I remember those moments so clearly because they happened so many times at so many different milestones. I remember one day we were all laying in my mom's bed and just talking about, like, can you believe we're going to high school? We're so cool. We're going to be in high school. I remember those moments. I remember during junior year where we're like, we are, like, next year we're going to rule the school, and we're going to be so cool, and we have prom coming up, and we have getting ready for college, and all of these super exciting moments, and it was always so wonderful. Now, all these big moments that I'm talking about, I want you to think of it as all of the little things that were watering the foundation that my parents started the day that I was born. And all the different instances I've had, all the bad instances, they're kind of like things that have come that have just tried to mess up that foundation. But the good of it continues to water that foundation, and that's come in many different ways. When I was in high school, everything was going great. Everything was looking up. That battery was finally starting to go into the green until the day that I found the bad YouTube video. I found it when I was 17 years old, and it was very unexpected, very, very unexpected. At the time, YouTube was still pretty new. And I had a computer in my room, and my door was open, and I saw a thumbnail, which is just a photo of the video, on the right-hand side of the screen. And it looked a little bit familiar, so I clicked on it, and when I did, I didn't know that me doing that would turn my entire life upside down. I clicked on it, and it was a video of me that somebody posted calling me the world's ugliest woman. It had over 4 million views on it, and there were thousands and thousands of comments on this video. And the comments were horrible. And I know they were horrible because they sat there and I just read every one. I was so desperate to just find one person who stood up for me, and I didn't see that at all. Every word that I saw on that screen felt like somebody was throwing a brick at me and just hitting me blow by blow. It felt like every time someone was saying, why did your parents not abort you? Because when you go out in public, people are going to go blind by your ugliness. To people saying, Lizzie, can you please just go ahead and go get that gun and put it to your head and take yourself out of this world? Thank you. Can you imagine what that would be like? Crushing, devastating, awful. I read all of the comments, and I, of course, was just bawling my eyes out. And my first thought, once I kind of snapped out of it, was, I don't want my parents to see this. And that was mostly because I wanted to protect them more than I wanted to protect myself. I knew that if they saw it, they were going to be devastated. And, of course, they found out about it, and they were, of course, just as upset as I was. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I was going to pick myself back up from this. I didn't know if I wanted to pick myself back up from this. I thought I had used so many years of my life to build this confidence, to be able to say, I'm not a victim anymore. That's all I wanted. I'm not the victim of bullying anymore. I'm not all of these things. And in a heartbeat, it was all changed. And all of a sudden, I was once again all of those things. It's hard because whenever there's a moment where we all hear things and we believe it and we say, yes, I am that, and yes, I am that. But if you have someone who is telling you something and they're saying, but you're not this, you're not that, you can't do that. The more they tell you, the more you start hearing it in your own mind, that's when it becomes dangerous. I did that very quickly. I was sitting there and reading all of these words behind the computer screen and just letting them get to me, and they just kept playing in my mind over and over and over. And even when I turned the screen off and tried to walk away, I still had those words in my head. They were playing on a loop, on repeat, over and over. I just could not get away from them. I kept thinking, are they right? Maybe they are right. Maybe the world would be a better place if I wasn't here. Maybe I'm not as pretty as I thought I was. That's the day that I was introduced to the world of cyberbullying. Not intentional, not at all. At the time, not wanted at all. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why it was happening. I couldn't comprehend why it was happening. I kind of had this thought in my mind that sometimes bullying is just stuff that happens in the classroom or the playground, and it stops there, but it doesn't. This happened to me when I was 17 years old, and if anything, cyberbullying has become just as worse as bullying has. Cyberbullying doesn't stop. It happens when a child is able to get a hold of social media, if they have an iPhone or an iPad or whatever it may be. They wake up in the morning and they see these things if they're being bullied. They see the negativity. They see it when they wake up. They see it during the day. They see it before they go to bed. And it's the same thing where I was the one reading all of these words. And in my mind, I was letting those words become my truth. With cyberbullying, it's happening every day to kids younger and younger. I can't imagine going through what I did when I was 17 at a younger age, combined with having to go to school, and if you're being bullied, having both of those things just breaks my heart to think about, because I know there's so many instances and stories of different kids around the world who are going through this. I'm only one person with one story. And to be able to hear all of these stories and learn from all of these people, I've realized that it happens to all of us. It happens to all of us, no matter what age we are, no matter what language we speak, no matter what background we come from. Bullying can happen in the workplace as an adult. It can happen at school, at any grade level, in college. It happens everywhere. Do we want it to stop? Do we want it to go away? Absolutely. Will it ever just go away? No. And I'll be the very first one to tell you that. But will there ever be a way that we can remedy it? Will there ever be a way that we can help one child, one student, one classroom, one grade level, one entire school? Will we be able to help them? Absolutely. After I found that video, I knew I once again had to take control of my life. I was slowly letting all the negativity quickly become the driver of that, and I wanted my seat back. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but that came in the form of me graduating high school and moving away to go to college, and I graduated from Texas State in San Marcos. And I knew I wanted to go away to school. I knew I wanted to move out of my parents' house and be independent. That's my dad didn't want me to. He offered to pay me to stay home every month. I said, no, gotta go. During that time, during that transition time, for me to be able to figure out how I was gonna pick myself back up and how I was gonna take back control, it took a lot of people. It took my dad with his humor. It took my mom with her loving heart. It took my younger brother and sister who just loved to tease me all the time. They always say that I'm their older sister, but I'm the smallest out of both of them, and so if I'm in their way sometimes, they'll just pick me up and move me out of the way. It took them who would always just treat me normally and would always remind me, you're just Lizzie, and we're here to support you, and we love you, and you're beautiful, and you're all of these things. And at the time, I appreciated that so much. I did. But it was one of those moments where it was easier said than done. I'm a very stubborn person, and if I get an idea in my mind or a goal in mind, I'll do whatever it takes to be able to reach it and accomplish it. I was asked to give my very first speech when I was a junior in high school, and my assistant principal said, Lizzie, we have 400 ninth graders, and I would like for you to go up in front of them and tell your story. Why? No, I can't do that. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to be boring. They're going to talk, and it's just going to be a disaster. She told me to go and talk to my parents, and my parents agreed that I should do it. My friends said it was a great idea. They're like, Lizzie, just do it. We'll go. We'll sit in the front row. We'll be your fan club. And they did. They went. I remember writing my entire speech and what I wanted to say word for word. Typed it all out, put it in a folder with Brad's, walked up on stage, sat down, and looked down and read the entire thing word for word. And I looked up, and when I did, that's an awkward sound. When I did, everyone was quiet, and they were so set on what I was saying. And I felt so confident, and I thought, wow, they get it. For so long, I thought nobody's gonna get it because nobody could be in my shoes and know what it's like. But when I was talking about self-confidence, when I was talking about being bullied, when I was talking about just wanting to be like everybody else, they got it. And in that moment, I just felt so proud and like, I can do this. So that day I went home and I Googled how to be a motivational speaker. I'm not joking, I did. And I watched YouTube videos and I studied speakers and do they walk around, do they not, do they have note cards, do they show a PowerPoint, what do they do? And I created my first website that day. I created my first professional website that didn't have, email address that didn't have the words cheer or baby in it. And I emailed all of these people and I said, if you ever need a speaker, I'm your girl. Definitely did not mention, I've only done one speech before. I spoke to anyone who would listen to me, whether I was going into a room and there were only 2 people there, so it was pretty much just a conversation, not really a speech. But I did it because I wanted to be able to share my story. I had no idea that me sharing my story to other people would be something that would take my confidence battery level all the way to green very, very quickly. I'm so grateful that I was asked to do that very first speech because all of us, anywhere in this room right now, we all have a purpose in this life. All of us. Some of us might need someone else to shine a flashlight on that purpose to help you find it. Some of us are so determined that you just grab the flashlight and you turn it on and you say, where's that purpose? I'm going to find it and I'm going to make it happen. I feel like I've been a little bit of both. But the bottom line is that that purpose is there and it's waiting for you to shine that light on it. I feel like I'm now very proud to say that I'm not a victim of bullying anymore. I'm proud to be the voice for those who have been victims. I'm proud to not only be the voice for the people who were the bullies, but for the people that were hurt as well. One thing that my eyes have definitely been open to, I've now been speaking for almost 10 years. And to be able to go out and speak around the US, especially in different schools, and even out of the country, and to be able to go out and share this message that at the end of the day, all of us have gone through something. All of us. But there's always hope to come out on the other side. Always. Now, I've been very, very blessed to have the life that I do. It's very special for me to be here today because we premiered my documentary at this exact same time last March. Having that premiere absolutely changed my life. I was very nervous to be able to share the people that are so close to me with other people. And I did that. And I was also very nervous to actually cry on camera. I remember telling our director on the first day, listen, if I cry, don't record it. And she kind of just looked at me and smiled and said, okay. And within the first 10 minutes of my first question, I was already bawling. And so my whole fear of crying went out the window very quickly. I learned that it's okay to be vulnerable. And being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger. I hope for those of you that are educators, you're able to take this message into your classroom and into other classrooms. To let them know that if they are ever feeling like they're a victim of bullying, it's okay to be vulnerable because there's always someone there who's going to help get you on the other side. Always. It just takes one person. That's it. Like I said before, bullying is something that's never going to stop, whether it's cyberbullying, whether it's bullying in person, whatever it may be. But if we can be the voice to be able to not only help the victims, but to definitely help the people who are being the bully. I've been asked many times if I could give advice to those who are hurting other people, what would I say? Or if a teacher says, if If someone is a bully in my classroom, how should I handle it? And my answer always surprises people. Because I always say, if there is someone who is hurting someone else, they're not doing it because they want to hurt them. They're doing it because they're coming from a place of hurt themselves. And for that, we have to have compassion for that. Telling them, why did you do that? Go sit in a corner. How dare you do that? What is that going to really do for them if they're suffering through something that we don't know about? It's only going to make it worse. So to be able to have compassion for the bully is going to change a lot of things, in my opinion, because I want to be the person who can shine the flashlight on that. The compassion you have for not just the victims. I think I got that because I've again often been asked if you could ever meet the person who posted that bad video, which I never have. I don't know if it was a man or a woman or where they're from, what I would do or say. And to be completely honest with you, I would give them a hug and I would thank them for not only changing my life and being a part of my flashlight for my purpose. I would hope that they were able to find that resource to be able to channel whatever they're going through in their own life and pray that they're not doing whatever they did to me to anybody else. I'm just a girl who grew up in Austin who had this crazy dream to be able to help other people. It's not easy. It's not. At the end of the day, I'm a hormonal girl who sometimes cries at commercials. But we're all just people who want to make a difference. Educators are the people who make a difference every single day. You might not be celebrities, you might not be on the big screen or magazines, but you are the heroes. You are the everyday heroes doing things that might be ordinary, but I'm telling you, they are extraordinary. And for that, I thank you, because I thank you from a student who grew up in the education system with incredible teachers, people who always supported me, incredible administrators. So I hope that this message is something that will be able to help you in different aspects, to help you affect and change at least one life. But with you being here, I already know that you've already changed some lives. And for that, as someone who's gone through something hard, I say thank you for them. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your passion. You are the ones who are helping shape our future leaders. You're the ones who are helping to shape them and build their confidence. You do that. And that is absolutely extraordinary. I want to thank you for your time and for having me, and I want to go ahead and call up my dad so we can take some questions, but thank you so very much. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Meet my friends.
Hello.
Friends
So
meet my
happy to
dad.
be here. We do have some questions if you want to go through slido.com. Sometimes it's always when we have a Q&A, people are always afraid to be that first person to ask that question. And you wait until that first brave person asks, and then everybody starts to ask. So we're going to kind of alternate. So some of you have already, throughout the presentation, have been submitting some questions. So if some of you, they'll have a microphone available if you want to ask some questions. And I guess because it's right here in front of us, I'll go ahead and ask the questions, and then Lizzie, you can answer, or it's something that I can answer. So one is from Mary Beth. Thinking back to teachers you've had, was there one who helped you the most with bullying? What did he or she do that we could replicate with our students?
Yeah, there's actually two people that stick out right away when I think about that. One of them was my 6th grade science teacher. She was in the documentary, Lori Schultz. She was incredible. She took me under her wing in a way that didn't make me feel like I needed it because other people were being not so nice to me. and she always made sure that I was okay. And in middle school, I was in the hospital a lot, and there were times where I would just get so upset because I wasn't able to be around my friends and do my regular routine. So during class, at the end of her lesson, before the bell would ring, she had them call me in the hospital just so I could talk to my friends and include me. And I think that definitely made a huge difference. And it was middle school, so I wasn't dealing with a lot of name calling face to face versus when I was in elementary school. But what was the second part of the question?
What did they do that they could do to replicate with their students?
I think my biggest advice is to always make sure every single student feels loved and accepted, no matter if they have a learning disability, a visual impairment, if they're in a wheelchair, whether they're not, but to make them all feel like they are the exact same student and you appreciate them and acknowledge them the exact same way. I think that's one of my best pieces of advice.
All right. You had your hand up?
I'm gonna be a little nervous with this. I so appreciate everything you've said, and I am working to start a movement, and I would love to partner with you about this, to give individuals around us a toolbox to help their students and to help people like you. And when I say people like you, I'm one of the people who stare at people like you in HEB, and I got thinking about that because my son is special needs. He is deafblind and he has autism, and he's had meltdowns in the grocery store, and we've looked around and felt like, people were looking at us and craning our necks. And I found myself staring at a lady with her child having a meltdown, but I wanted to express to her, I'm one of you. I understand. I would love to help. So I sort of came up with a gesture to try and convey empathy. And different, the Lance Armstrong Foundation has had, the wristbands that kind of show, Live Strong, and the AIDS have had the ribbons. But if there was a way that we could convey, I'm part of your group, whatever that group is, whether it's special needs or other things that convey empathy. And empathy starts with I have to empathize with you and imagine myself in your shoes. This is I in sign language. If what we were to do is have a movement that started with, I hold this over my heart. So if you see me staring at you, instead of you thinking I'm judging you or I'm not empathizing with you, I could just walk by you, don't even know you, and I could do that and hold that up, and you would know that I empathize with you and I'm holding you near my heart. And other kids who see each other in the hallway who are being bullied, or they consider themselves that they want to reach out to that person, may not even know them, they could do that as they walk by. And we all need help and assistance at times, and if what we could do is sort of raise our hand like this, in a classroom people raise their hands all the time, but outside the classroom, in the streets or whatever, if someone was in a wheelchair and needed to go up a ramp, and they could use a little help that you didn't know if they needed a push or not, they could raise their hand like this and get some assistance. I'm open to empathy. I could use assistance right now. I think it would be a powerful movement. And I'll have some information I'll give you later, but what do you think about that? Would that have helped you as you were growing up and people staring at you? Some of those people were staring going, I have a child or a granddaughter or grandchild like you, but you thought they were staring at you in judgment. Do you think that would have helped you to recharge your batteries of confidence that that person you walked by, instead of them staring at you wondering why, they did that as they walked by you and tried to build you up?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for doing what you do. I think that's absolutely incredible, and I love the whole idea of it. As far as when I was younger, if it would have helped me personally, it's hard to say because I have bad vision, and there are times where I wouldn't notice if people were staring at me, and they were, and I think I would be more paranoid or feel guilty if they did that, and I would miss it, and I would probably just want to go back and say, I saw you, I feel the same way. But I think it definitely would have been something that would have been really awesome to see. Very inclusive and very kind of like, I get it, we're on the same page. I think you as a parent maybe could answer that, especially since it happened a lot when I was younger.
It could have been a battle, and sometimes as a parent, you just want to especially if it's an adult, you just want to go tell them, why? Why do you have to stare? And sometimes we would always say there's a difference because, I'm just like you, and if you see somebody who looks different, you're gonna look because you're curious. But there's a difference between looking and staring. And that was a challenge for us is, we had to find it within our hearts to just not let it get to us. And just, we didn't want her to sense us getting mad because it was going to make her feel even worse. And so we didn't hide it from her. We just said, you know what? We just lead our lives and let anybody do whatever they need to do, look at us or make any comments or do whatever, because we're leading our own lives. We can't change their way of thinking or feeling. We know how we feel, and we know we have a young lady who we love so very much. We're proud of her, and we just want to treat her. And we would always tell her, just be who you are. Because when people who look at you and stare at you might have these thoughts about the things that you can't do, when they just start watching you and realizing you are just like us, then they would find themselves befriending her and wanting to talk to her and get closer to her and play with her and realize you are just like I am. All right.
Yeah.
There's a good question that came up, and it says, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Taking a vacation. In 5 years, oh man. Well, I'm currently working on my 4th book right now, and I'm really, really excited. It's coming out in 2017. But I've always had this dream of mine to write a children's book series and have the main characters all have either a disability, or if they're coming from a background that isn't the norm, if they're adopted, if they come from different home, whatever it may be, I want those characters to be the stars of it. Because I feel like sort of the way that my dad would take me and introduce me to the class and you would kind of have the knowledge of it already, I feel like if the students were to be able to see these kids who look different and read about them in books and see how cool they are, when they see them in a classroom or outside of a classroom, they'll already understand the situation. And that's just always been a passion of mine. So hopefully by then I'll be on a tropical island writing my kids' book series.
There was, did you have your hand up? Okay, there was a question, and I think they moved it up, but basically was saying you make a good, what makes a good teacher good or a good teacher great? And as principal, my teachers would tell you, the whole entire staff would tell you that I highly value and I tell them that relationships comes before learning. You have to have that. And with Austin ISD, we're really big on social emotional learning. And I had that one teacher who no matter what, and there was a lot of bullying going on in the class, and we had a lot of upset parents, and I would always tell them to try to build those relationships with the kids. And I'm telling you this because, number one, he's not at my school anymore, but he's a great teacher, and it's a success story. And what he was doing, I was saying, have a lunch bunch. Well, that's my time. You need that 30 minutes of lunch. And so you might not realize the benefits that would come from that. And when we were going through a social emotional learning activity, we had to have a card and teach each other and walk through that lesson. And he realized halfway through that lesson, when he was the teacher and I was a student, he stopped. And he said, I just realized that I don't even possess those characteristics. And how can I be a loving, caring teacher when I'm expecting that from them when I don't do that? And he changed his whole total way of teaching. And he had parents after that requesting him as a teacher. And, he was talking and helping to lead, anti-bullying kind of lessons with students across the campus. And it absolutely is a learning experience for you. And so when you talk about making a good teacher great, it's having those relationships. The learning's going to come right after that. And a lot of the times the bullying happens in our classrooms when we don't realize it. And it's happening away in the neighborhood because of that, especially with the cyberbullying. And it happens in a way that we don't even realize it. And so we just have to know when sometimes we get so busy in our lives and you need to talk that out. You need to make sure you're apologizing. That's not really the end. You got to take those and make them learning opportunities and try to find a time that you can have individual conversations with them. Because like what Lizzie said, you might not realize a lot of those kids are coming from a place of hurt. And if you just tell them you need to apologize and move on, it's not really taking care of the issue.
I would also like to say, to add on to that, he was a teacher my entire life of elementary school. By the time I was in 5th grade, everyone knew him because if he would see me walking with my class, he would sometimes randomly just do a cartwheel, just because while he was wearing his apron. He always had a different apron
I
with
wasn't
like
an art teacher, but I always wore an apron. I was a first grade teacher.
with
I
like
don't know.
90 pins and
I had
pencils
everything in the
it.
pockets.
You still kind of, he has this shirt now that he loves and it has like 5 pockets on it and there's always something different. So you're like upgrading your apron. But to be able to, I would like go to his classroom a lot and there were times where he would be walking around on the desk teaching them. But they were all just so set on what he was saying and so into whatever they were learning and making it fun, but they were still getting it. There are even times where I would go in and they would all just be snacking while they were eating. And Dad would say, well, if I have something good to eat, then they can all bring a snack too. And so he just made it a place where he was their teacher, but he made it fun for them. And I think what's really a testament to that is even we'll, to this day, go out to places and people see him and they're like, Mr. Velasquez, you're my teacher. And I'm like 30 now, and he hates that because it makes him feel old. But to be able to have that where they remember him just from being a first grade teacher and the way that he was handling that, I think that is a big testament on the power of teachers can have to make that personal connection with the students.
You know, it just, we can't say it enough, is having those relationships with your kids. And when you have those community meetings every day, and just talking about all the great things that happened the day before, but what you really need to work on for that day so that you can address it in the day, say, you know, we got to focus on this. And it did get better. But a lot of times, you know, in my school, the kids already know that they can come in the morning or afternoon or sometime during lunch. They'll even go to the office and leave a note to say, I need to talk to you when you have time. And it might be something they may be going. And we've made it comfortable enough that I always make sure to tell them, you know, I can talk to you individually, and if you feel comfortable enough, I always ask the 2 or 3 of them, are they okay coming to the table to talk it out together? And almost every time they say yes. And sometimes you may, after you realize, and you're going through this with these students, you do not realize that it's been going on for 2 or 3 years. And it always seems to be that it wasn't even them saying anything to each other, just what they're hearing from friends. And once you realize, you finally stop that and they can finally go on with their life. Another question says, what advice do you give younger children just like you?
Younger children just like me? What does that mean?
Who maybe have,
okay.
I guess, differences.
I think my biggest advice would be that we've all gone through what you're going through right now. And right now it might seem really confusing and really frustrating and that it's probably never going to get better and all of these other things, but it will. It will always get better, and you're never, ever alone with anything that you're going through, and I think that applies to anyone of absolutely any age. You're never alone at all, and I think it's even important for teachers to know you're not alone. You might have these days where you just feel frustrated and like you're not getting across to your students, but you are. You always are. And to know that you might not be the only one going through that. And it's a funny thing if you think about it, because you have these students who feel sometimes like things are never going to get better, and then you might have this teacher who sometimes feels like, am I being the best teacher that I possibly can? And without realizing it, you're both going through the exact same thing, which is kind of funny to think about. But I think that is my biggest piece of advice, is just to know that it'll always get better and you're never alone.
We have about 5 minutes, and we have some questions up here, but is there anyone else in the audience that has a question?
Don't be shy.
Burning question that you want to ask? Oh, here comes someone.
Yay!
So I'm in another community, and I wanted to know how we get you to come spread your message other places. I looked you up, and I found how to do a preview and all of those things, but how would you like us to connect and spread the message farther?
Well, there's different things. We have a lot of tools and resources for educators on our website. It's just imwithlizzie.com. And we have a curriculum that goes along with the documentary that my dad helped create that can be used in schools. We are also partnered with a company called Tug. And I think someone's here from Tug. I can't see out there, but I feel like I know she's here.
She's raising her hand in the
Okay,
very
she's
back.
back there. If you want to talk to her, but there's a way that you can get the documentary into your schools and also use the curriculum to go along with it. But I think that's the best way that you could take it out in different places. And we wanted to make sure that students were able to see it, and so we made it as affordable as we possibly can for any school.
And as a Title I principal, a Title I school, it is absolutely a great cost. It will not hurt your budget at all. Not that we're trying to sell it to make money, but I know because we're always watching our budgets, and that when I saw the price, I was pleasantly surprised and happy. And the program that we worked on was a discussion guide, and it could be a preview discussion that you have with the students, and then a post discussion. And if I could change anything on that after I practiced it with a group of young men.
He's definitely a teacher.
I wanted to walk through it so I could talk about it. But when I went through it, I thought about, how sometimes you want to give them something to listen for. So even maybe the post discussion, you can say, I want you, as you watch this is something to be thinking about. Because, sometimes if you start, to lose a little focus, it maybe help you keep more focused when you're listening, so you want to be writing about it, so you can discuss it later. And the discussion guide also has some activities that they can do in groups. And so I think it's a really great learning tool to be used in schools.
You could do one more.
Dad, it says, besides humor, how do you deal with all the negativity? I am a very, I hope, forgiving, loving person. I try not to judge anyone. I do believe we have a strong faith foundation. And I always say we're all sinners, and we don't do everything right. But I do know that I have a love in my heart. I grew up in a very poor family, but very rich in love. And it's one that I would do all over again. And I grew up in a family that we had a lot of sense of humor. And I do that at home, and my wife, I drive her crazy.
She's here, by the way.
And she's here in the front. If you want to stand up, Rita, because stand up and turn
Say hey.
around. Rita.
Yeah.
She says that she has 4 kids, because she
Yeah.
counts me as one. And with me and my 3 kids, they're like my best friends.
We are. He calls us friends. Every time he walks in the room,
I
he's
would
like,
say,
hey, friends.
And we sit there, and I had the flu last week.
Which is why his voice sounds like
And
that.
I was
He's not
quiet.
contagious anymore.
And it's not like me to be quiet. And she kept saying, Dad, please. Of course, she stayed at her apartment the whole week. She stayed away.
I made everyone, I had kids' Disney face mask, and anyone who came near me, they had to wear one.
Yeah. But I was really, really quiet. And they know there's something different. But I try to find the sense of humor, not to hide anything, but I don't let anything negative, because what am I going to get out of that? And if I'm just going to be angry and upset, and initially you can get upset, and they call me the gosh darn guy, because instead of cussing so much, I always say gosh darn. And but you take whatever happens in your life, and you can have the worst things, but at least if you have your health, you have your family, you have a home, you have food, you're okay. Don't let all the other material things in your life get to you. You, of course, are going to get upset, and I do believe that God answers our prayers in ways that we might not expect it, and we don't, but everything always works out. And I'm so proud of what I have in my life, that I have my wife, and I have my kids, and we have a great family. We have a great faith community. It couldn't get any better. And so I don't try to avoid the negativity, but you just take it, and I can never change the way anybody feels or thinks. But all I can do is, you can take the worst person, whoever wants ill will against you, whatever, you still pray and want the very best for them.
I know we're out of time, but I think this would just be the perfect way to wrap it up. Okay, but if you could, I just want you to let them know the day that Grandma told you about being a teacher, when you called her on the payphone.
I did. I was first generation college student, and parents didn't know how to help me, and they said, Mijo, we don't know how to help you, and we don't have money to give you money to go to college. I said, that's okay, I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry, And I went to St. Ed's here in Austin for my undergraduate, and then got my master's at UT. But after the computers were just coming out at that time, and I knew I wanted to major in computer science because I'm going to make a lot of money in that. It was the worst semester, so boring, because I'm always running my mouth, and I was writing these Fortran programs that I didn't understand, and it was so hard, and I was miserable, and my grades weren't, I thought I was super smart in school, and everything you go through your first semester in college. And I went to the hallway payphone she laughs about, because there was no cell phones.
That's so funny.
And I called my mom the night before. I called my mom the night before the next semester registration, and I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know if this is it for me. And I love college. And she says, mijo, you always said you wanted to be a teacher. You always pretended you were a teacher ever since you were in elementary school. And I know you want to do computer stuff because it makes a lot of money. But do you think that's going to make you happy? If you become a teacher, you just need to know you would never become rich, but it's probably going to be something that you're going to love the rest of your life. And I changed my mind that night, and I thank her to death. And I'm in my 27th year in education, 10th year as principal. Thank you. We had a question. You sat down, but if you want to come back up and ask that question.
Okay, I just had a quick question. How common is your disease that you were born with, and have you met any children that you could help by telling them your story, kids that are born with the exact same disorder?
I was actually diagnosed for the first time when I was 25 years old, and it's in the documentary. It was definitely not planned at all. I just got a call from my doctor that said, we have your diagnosis, and I was given the option to include it in the film or to not. And up until still now, now that I do have a diagnosis, I haven't met anyone who has the exact same thing that I do. But I'm hoping that with sharing that experience that I had, because it was just such a very emotional thing, not only for me, but for my parents as well, I hope that when other people watch it who might have a different disorder, that they feel inspired and know that you might not think that you'll ever get an answer, but out of the blue one day you might, and there's always that hope. So I think that's why I really, really wanted to include it in the film.
So I guess on behalf of both of us and my wife, we'd like to thank you so much for being here, and thank you for spending your morning with us.
Thank you.